Hello everyone, James, Living Gardens Homestead. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Tonga volcano that went off in the southern hemisphere. I know it's been a little while back, but you're hearing different things on it. But welcome back, you subscribers that subscribe to our channel. If you haven't subscribed already, I invite you to subscribe. Uh, anyway, on the topic here, like I said, we got changes in the weather, and I did a little research, and I was trying to find out something. Which me and with a medical background, I do a lot of my research through medical, and in a medical journal, I found where they were doing tests on the evaporation of water. And the reason I'm bringing this up is they do a test for one thing to show that something happens there. But these tests they were doing for medical reasons. And what they did is they took so much water and put it in a container. I think it was under a certain atmosphere, like 0 atmospheres, and I can't remember the exacts of it, but like 0 atmosphere, 1 atmosphere, and so on. And they had like a test sample with just the water there. And then they took the other samples, like, I don't know exactly how they did it. They show on the thing, but they put the samples in, and they put a magnetic field around these to see if it would affect the evaporation of that water. And to make a long story short, they found out that the magnetic field around that water caused a more rapid evaporation than where in the controlled canister it didn't evaporate as fast. Look over me, because it's hard sometimes for me to get my words out. But anyway, they showed in their experiment that the magnetism does cause more evaporation than without it. So the reason I brought that up is, yeah, we can do these little small things in a lab, but if you think about it, our bodies are a lab. You put certain things in. How does that food dissolve? How does your body uptake that food? Our body is like a small mini lab. Well, the earth itself is like a big lab. Now, if the magnetism is going to affect water in a container that they set up, then don't you think this container of earth with the magnetic fields around it, because of the magnetic poles, don't you think that magnetism has a lot to do with the evaporation? Maybe that's what helps the evaporation to form our clouds, causing the rain. And I got to thinking about that, and it's like, well, how would that affect the things we're seeing today? We're getting flooding going on in places that it don't flood. We're getting drought in places there is no drought, or there wasn't drought. And it's like, it's got to be to do with something with this. Yeah, that CO2 thing, the Earth's dealt with their CO2 before. I mean, it's nothing new. And as a matter of fact, back during the dinosaurs, they was 100 times the CO2 in the air than they are now. So, yes. See, I'm starting to get off track. Let me come back to it. The magnetic fields, if they do that, and if we're right, and the magnetic poles are moving on the earth, they say they're getting ready to flip. They could. I don't know when. They don't know when. And they say it has in the past, and it shows in the rock core samples that we take. But if the poles are moving, then that means our magnetism coming from those poles is moving with it. At least that's what I think. And I think if them have moved, then the weathers we was getting one place, we're now getting in another place. And the droughts that are coming about in our rivers that are drying up could have something to do with the poles moving and causing the magnetic fields to shift into different areas. We're stronger and creating more evaporation, which causes more rain in those places. That's just my theory on it. But anyway, I'm going to get to the Tonga, and there has been, when that volcano went off, it was underwater, okay? And when it exploded a lot of water with it. Well, the water went up into, I think, the stratosphere maybe. Anyway, it was like 30 some miles up into the atmosphere. Now, not only water went up there, you had sulfur that went up, sulfur gases and all these other gases that come from a volcano that went up with it. Now, you've got researchers, and it's very confusing when you get on there and you try to research and try to find the truth, because you'll have one researcher over here saying it's going to warm the planet. You got another researcher over here saying it's going to cool the planet. Which is right and which is right? You know what it is? They really don't know. Okay, here's what I do know. I do know that if you send these gases like sulfur and stuff up into our atmosphere, and the dust from a volcano, some of these volcanoes we see that's not underwater, and you see them erupting and all that smoke and ash and stuff going into the atmosphere. See, that type of volcano would cause a shading if it went up high enough and it's stuck in, because it's going to take it a while for it to come back out of the atmosphere. So it'll be like putting a shade cloth over your greenhouse. The reason we put them over the greenhouse in the summertime is because it gets so hot in the greenhouse. We put a shade cloth so that there's not so much sun coming in and it don't get quite as hot. So that would cause on the planet cooling. I see their point on that if that's what's happening. But with this volcano, with the Tonga volcano, it was underwater, and when it exploded, it shoved all them tons of water as steam and stuff like that into the atmosphere. Well, water is well known to, for instance, when you got weather, when it's real cloudy, it traps the heat in from the earth, and you don't lose as much to the atmosphere, so it stays warmer. When it's clear, not cloudy, a lot of your heat escapes earth, and it goes up and away in the earth. We get cooler here. So that's some of our weather patterns. That tells me the clouds are holding the heat in for us. And to me, if that much water went up, then it's I don't know what it's going to do, but my opinion is, with that much water, I think it's going to cause a warming effect. I may be wrong. You know, the ash and stuff that went up with it could cause a cooling. They could cancel one another out and cause nothing, but I do know that the water in the atmosphere would hold the heat down. And I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not saying one of the scientists on one side or the other is right, but they've all got their theories. This is my theory. I think water is going to hold the heat in. But anyway, I think it was last week, we had over the planet, there was 50 volcanoes going off at the same time. And I'm sure you all have heard about the one in Hawaii on the big island that's going off now. Well, let me explain this. That's 50 at one time going off last week. Now, with the Tonga, I'm just going to read you a little bit this time, because it gets boring when I'm reading, I know that. But let me read you a little bit on the Tonga. There's some researchers that have been researching CO2 that's in the atmosphere down around, let's see what it says here. A research team. Now, don't get me wrong, if everybody in the world, every country, would judge the United States based on our politicians, they're going to see all of us as bad people, right? Okay, you got it. We're not all bad people. It's just the politicians has made us that kind of impression out there. And I'm sure in other countries, the way that country's ran by their politicians, it's the same way these normal people in those countries, just like me and you, we're not all like the politicians. Some of us really want the truth, and some of us really want to do the right thing, and we're not doing it for money. We're not doing it for power and stuff like they do it for. So I'm talking to you all that are like me and not like the politicians. So this comes out of China, okay? That's the reason I brought that up. We all got this idea that China's this way. Well, all people in China are not out to do bad things. Some people are scientists just like us, and they want to know the truth. So here's a research team from the, I don't know if I may butcher this, Hefei Institutes of Physical Science of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. They've been monitoring and analyzing the greenhouse gas concentrations before and after the volcanic eruption in Tonga with the greenhouse gases monitoring instruments. It's called the GMI. Now, they inverted the greenhouse gas monitoring data over Australia and New Zealand near the volcano in January of 2019, 2020, and 2022. After the Tonga volcano erupted in January of 2022, carbon dioxide concentrations near the volcano soared to around 414 parts per million, according to the researchers, compared with the estimated 412 parts per million had the volcano not erupted. The increased 2 parts per million equaled, now get this, this is what they're saying, the increased 2 parts per million equaled a whole year's CO2 emission on Earth. Now, I want you to let that sink in a little bit. That one volcano, the Tonga volcano, according to these researchers, says when it erupted, it released enough CO2 into the atmosphere to equal a whole year's CO2 emission on Earth. That's from one volcano. I've always said this. Our volcanoes release CO2 into the atmosphere along with other gases. Okay? You can't say CO2 is all coming from our cars. You can't say it's all coming from burning coal. You can't say it's all coming from burning natural things, because when you burn a stick of wood, if you completely burn it, it produces CO2. That is a completely combusted gas. Okay? CO is the one we don't want to have around because it can kill us. But CO2 is a natural gas in the air. It even comes from the volcanoes. And this volcano, in what little time it erupted, it put out enough to do a whole year of all the CO2 on Earth that we put out. So, you know, they can say we're doing it. We can stop driving all of our cars, stop burning anything. You're still going to get CO2 in the atmosphere. Back when the dinosaurs were on Earth, and the CO2 was like 3,000 or 4,000 parts per million. Where did it come from? It didn't come from automobiles. It didn't come from factories burning coal. People, it's not that I'm for anything or against anything. I'm for what the science says. And don't shut down driving automobiles because there's wrecks and so many people get killed a year. Oh, that's too many people, so we're just going to stop everybody from driving. You can't do that. It's just not natural to stop progress. And by what they're doing, they're stopping progress. They're wanting to shut down everything that has progressed America to be what it is today, and a lot of other countries. But I wanted to bring this up to you because there's two hemispheres on Earth that people don't know about, some people. You got a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere. What some people don't realize is when it's summer here in the northern hemisphere, it's winter in the southern hemisphere. When it's summer in the southern hemisphere, it's winter here. And right now we're going into winter. So that means the southern hemisphere is getting ready to go into summer, if it ain't already started. But the reason I brought that up is we farm in the summer here. The southern hemisphere farms in the winter that we have. Right now, their farms and stuff, their stuff's already in the ground. They've already planted and this, that, and we get a lot of that stuff from the southern hemisphere, a lot of our food. And the reason I brought that up is this volcano, when it spewed all this up in the atmosphere, I don't know what exactly does it, but they say one hemisphere don't let the stuff in the air go into the other hemisphere as much as it does that hemisphere. In other words, I've heard rumor, and I can't prove this, I don't know the facts of it, but I've heard that if we had a nuclear war here in the northern hemisphere, the safest place to be would be in the southern hemisphere, because a lot of that would not be in the southern hemisphere. Now, I do know that it crosses over, but it ain't going to be as fast as what it does. It's sort of like, I don't know, maybe going to a big place into a small tube to get over here in another big place. But that's what's happening here. Most of that stuff, it didn't just thin out and be all over the earth that came from Tonga. Most of it's in the southern hemisphere. So it would only be half as thick if it did come up here in the northern hemisphere. But it's all stuck down there right now. Just a little bits came up into the northern hemisphere. So right now, it's summer down there. I don't know if it's going to affect the crops that they're putting out. I don't know if it's going to warm the place up to where it's going to burn their crops up down there with no rain. I don't know if it's going to make it cooler to where the crops don't grow as well, but it's definitely going to change their weather. Now, it may be flooding where they've got their crops, or it may be a drought where they've got their crops. The reason I say all this is I believe our sun, our planet, our magnetic poles, our moon, everything affects the weather on this planet. It ain't one thing that they're trying to tell us. They need to be looking at what the truth is if they want to try to fix it, which I know you can't plug a volcano and you can't do this, and they know that too. But doing what we're doing, one volcano putting out a whole year's worth of CO2 in the air, I don't think we're doing as much harm as our own planet's doing to itself. Or is it really harm? Is our planet the livable planet that it is because of these things that it does? You know, I'm not one way or the other. I'm for science. Now, I hate when people lie to us. And believe me, the politicians do a lot of lying. Oh, they'll even tell you they'll pay off your college loans if you vote for them. But was it the truth or was it a lie? They know what they can do and they can't do. And their mouth speaks a lot of stuff they can't do and they don't have the power to do just to get the votes. But people don't believe everything you're told, because a lot of it is like a half-truth fitted with a lot of lie. Now, what I'm telling you is what I do know. And just like our moon affects the tides on our planet, of our oceans. It's powerful. The gravitational pull of that moon can pull our water. Why? Because our water is bipolar. You got a negative side and a positive side of our water. And I guess that's about all I had to say to you today. Just wanted to let you know a little bit about the Tonga volcano and some of the effects it had. But anyway, If you haven't already, please like, subscribe to our channel, and share it. And this is James from Living Gardens Homestead. You have a good day. Goodbye.